Any juicy Leafs rumors to start out with, seeing as how this is a Toronto station?
Well, I mean, this is the Toronto Maple Leafs, so there's going to be all kinds of rumors all the time, and whether you're talking about whether they might move up in the draft or whether they have interest in Dan Boyle of the San Jose Sharks, formerly of the San Jose Sharks, as a free agent. Heard one today about their search for coaches and whether Tony Granato might be one of the guys that they've looked at, a Colorado assistant or once a Colorado assistant. So I think there's all kinds of rumors involving the Leafs. I heard what you guys were talking about, players they may or may not move. I don't think they have a lot of untouchables, but at the same time, I don't expect that they're going to be making monster moves here. My guess is that if they could go on to Monday, or the draft on tomorrow night, pick 8th overall, go to Monday, re-sign David Boland, and I think they'd like to re-sign Leo Komarov. They would consider that successful and move from there to make other moves during the summer.
How much competition are they going to have for David Boland, Dalla?
Lots.
Yeah.
No, I mean, lots in terms of there are a lot of teams kicking the tires, looking at David Boland. But I think those teams are going to face the same questions the Maple Leafs are with him, and that is, how much do you want to pay this guy, over how many years, and how healthy is he? Now, they feel confident enough that they want to bring him back, and talking to Anton Thun, Boland's agent, he says Boland wants to go back to the Maple Leafs, but they're not looking. The Leafs aren't interested in the kind of term or the money that Boland's talking about, and his agent Anton Thun. And I guess that Boland at this point is confident that he can get the offer that he likes out there. We'll see. I mean, this is a whole different process now. We're into the second year of having this window where teams can talk to free agents for 6 days and then go into July 1st. So we're going to find out how much of this is false posturing and how much of this is real.
What do you think Dale Talon's going to do with the first pick, Damien? And if he decides, if they do want to end up moving that pick, what's it worth this year?
I think in a perfect world, Dale Talon would move that pick because, to me, and I know there's differing opinions on what the Florida Panthers are up to, when they went and got Roberto Luongo last year, that was a signal that this was a team that wants to try to win now. And when they look at their young players and they look at the Colorado Avalanche, they're probably saying maybe we can be that team and make a big jump if we add a significant or a good player up front or on the back end. So I think he's looking at that. I think ownership wants to win there. They're bleeding money. They're very ambitious with what they want to do. So in an ideal world, problem is it's not a great draft.
Yeah.
Or at least it lacks superstars at the top. So can he make a big hit by say a team from Toronto going from 8 to 1, or a team like Vancouver that maybe is the number one candidate to try to get that number pick, but they're just going to move to 6 to 1. Well, they're not going to give you a mother load to make that move. So my guess is, and I talked to Dale yesterday, and he said he thinks it's 60 to 70% he's going to keep the pick. He says he's got one very serious offer that he's considering. And, we hear this every year. It's happened 4 times that somebody's traded the top pick. The Panthers have done it twice, which is kind of amazing when you think about it. It wasn't with Dale Talon as GM. I imagine they'll keep the pick because that seems to be what usually happens.
Damien Cox of Sportsnet joins us in Primetime Sports. Damien, what are you hearing about Jarome Iginla? Chris Johnson of Sportsnet has an item that the Bruins cap issues forced Iginla to explore options. Where do you think he ends up? What would the market for Jarome be right now?
The interesting thing about this story is that Jarome Iginla, because of his successful season with the Boston Bruins last year, and because he picked up all those bonuses that were available to him in his contract, is the person who has caused the cap problem that is now maybe going to make it impossible for him to go back there, unless he really wants to. He might have to go back there for a lower number and lower term than he would be interested. I think it's interesting that, last summer there were few suitors for Jarome Iginla, and the Boston Bruins did very well. This summer there's likely to be more suitors for him. Cap is going up. People have seen how successful he was, that he still has some miles left on him. I would think there'd be 2 or 3 or 4 teams that would be back and interested in him. Now, what does he want to do? Because that really comes down to what it comes down to now. He's made his money. He's not going to get, I don't think, 3, 4, 5, 6 years or anything like that. But can he get 2 and in a situation he wants to be in? And can the Bruins give him term that'll get them through the short term and maybe that they'll be able to handle full down? So I think that there's interest, and there's going to be interest, not tons and tons of interest, not like you're going to see for Vanek, not like we would have seen for Marian Gaborik if he'd gone to the open market, but there's going to be interest in Jarome Iginla.
Is there how is the market developing in terms of Spezza and Kessler?
That's an interesting one because so far Brian Murray said today nothing even close, no offers even close to Jason Spezza. Doesn't shock me. I think fans in Ottawa might be thinking they can get a lot for Jason Spezza. To me, it's a little like the Luongo situation in Vancouver, in that expectations may be higher than what reality is. What teams can handle that cap hit? The cap hit is $7 million. Yeah, the salary is much lower, but the cap hit's $7 million. Who's going to fit that on their team, and what are they going to give Ottawa back? I'm sure Ottawa's looking for a first-round pick because they don't have one. They sent that one to Anaheim. I'm sure they'd like to get a pick and a prospect, but I would imagine any team wanting to take on Jason Spezza is going to want to send salary back to Ottawa. So at this point, there's no deal there. To me, it makes sense for Ottawa to try to jump in and get something done, because once the Ryan Kessler deal gets done, and there's a chance that may happen at the draft or even before the draft, the markets for centers might shrink a little bit. And, maybe Brian Murray's looking at it and thinking he'll be able to get more. But to me, those two situations are really linked. And right now, Ryan Kessler's a much more appealing player for contractual reasons, for the way he plays, for a bunch of reasons than Jason Spezza.
You're going to get something significant for Kessler, aren't you? Especially because of the contract situation.
Damien,
there's been talk about Anaheim maybe giving up the number 10 pick and a prospect for Ryan Kessler. That's a lot more than you're going to get for Jason Spezza, I would imagine.
Damien, with the draft being in Philadelphia, are there any expectations that Ron Hextall may pull something out? I mean, I know there are a lot of people who've already been talking about that. Don't be surprised if Ron Hextall does something to excite the locals. What would you think the odds are of that?
Well, I mean, the odds, it goes back to, they can make a splash and try to move up, but are they going to give up a significant amount to move up and get the number 1 pick just to make a splash? They're not in that situation, I think. They've had a lot of disappointments with contracts in the last couple of years. Ilya Bryzgalov, they had to buy out. Vinny Lecavalier, they brought him in after a compliance buyout. Now they're looking to ship him out. They've sent Scott Hartnell already to Columbus. I think they want to change their team, but a lot of people want to change their teams. I know Nick Kypreos on Hockey Central noon today was saying he's heard that maybe Ed Snyder wants to do something. It's possible, but to me that kind of talk is in a market where teams believe they need something to grab the attention of the local fans. Well, they've got great fans here in Philadelphia. They sell out. They do extremely well. They had a playoff team this past year. Unless this is something totally driven by ego that Ed Snyder wants to be able to say, look at me, look at me. I don't see the reason for the Flyers to feel like they have to make a splash. This is going to be a well-attended event, and like I say, they're a popular team. So, but you know what? I mean, Philadelphia, as we all know, guys, the Flyers, they've done a lot of unpredictable stuff in recent years. They're not afraid to be bold and figure out how the salaries add up later, and that could happen here as well.
Now, obviously, Dama, there's no obvious number 1 this year. There's maybe 3, 4 guys in the running to be number 1. Who's your number 1? And I understand that who has the pick is going to help determine it as well. But if you had to pick one guy from the junior hockey you've been watching the last while, who would it be?
Well, I would say Aaron Ekblad and maybe Sam Reinhart, but that comes with an asterisk because I just didn't see Sam Bennett play enough. But it's one of those 3 guys. But I can't imagine you could go wrong with Aaron Ekblad. I don't know if you guys have had the opportunity to speak with him. He's such a remarkably mature guy. He was an exceptional talent who got into the OHL early. I think he'd be ready to play next year. And even that we used to frown on 18-year-olds getting the opportunity to play in the NHL. These guys are so developed and so mature. Sam Reinhart, I mean, he comes from that hockey family. His brother Griffin will probably be on Long Island. His other brother Max is in the he's ready to go. He's ready to play. So I think if you're looking at a draft without a special talent at the top, then maybe it's a draft where if you've got one of those picks, you're going to play it safe and go with the best bet. And to me, the best bets are probably Ekblad and Reinhart, with, again, the proviso, I didn't see enough of Sam Bennett to really judge where he's at.
Damien, the last Canadian-born defenseman to go number 1 overall was Chris Phillips in 96 or 97. I think in 96. What's the reason for that?
Yeah.
Anything in particular? Is that just a cyclical thing? Or it's a hell of a cycle if it is.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that was a bad draft in 96. I don't know if you guys look back at it. I mean, but the next guy to go after Chris Phillips was Andre Zuzin, and I think Rick Jackman was in the top 5. Volchkov, the kid out of Barrie, or the Russian kid, he was in the top 5. So that was a bad draft. We know that Eric Johnson went number 1. He's an American, but he went number 1 in his draft year, and he wasn't the best player in that draft. There seems to be a bit of a pattern that the best defenseman in each year's draft isn't always the guy who goes first. Now, I don't know why that is. It could be situational, but it could also be that it's so hard to judge defensemen at the age of 18 as to which one may be better. Now, to me, in this draft, Ekblad is head and shoulders above the next guy, who might be Hayden Fleury. He might be the best defenseman after that. And then you start getting into other players, a couple of Americans. But whether it's Canadian defensemen, look at our Olympic team. We have no shortage of outstanding Canadian defensemen. But all of them, Shea Weber, Drew Doughty, Duncan Keith, go on down the list, none of them were the first pick in their draft. So, that's a great question to which a scout can probably give you a better answer. But teams that take defensemen first overall, there's not a great record of success that they've been the best defenseman in those drafts.